Welcome into the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. The Titan Insider, Terry McCormick, Blaine Keller, producer Mark Rogers joining you. The Titans came as close as they have pretty much all season to a win out of the bye week, tying the game late against the Houston Texans at 13-13. But a game-winning drive by Davis Mills and a go-ahead field goal as time expired by former Titans kicker Matthew Wright sent Tennessee into another losing season, Terry.
Yeah, fourth straight year that they're going to finish with a losing record and still in play for the fourth straight year with a declining win total unless they can find at least 2 wins in the final 7 games.
Yeah, this game afterward, a different kind of frustration in the locker room. It felt like typically a sense of dejection that turned into a lot of anger, especially from defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons, back from injury, said he's not going to sugarcoat anything moving forward when it comes to this team and their struggles across the board.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Jeff's comments, and you knew being there that, he's tired of the losing. He's sick of it. He's ready for something to change here in a positive way. Without calling out the offense by name, he basically called out the offense for so many 3 and outs, 5 of them, and 4 penalties on J.C. Latham among 9 penalties the Titans had on the day.
Titans lost 16-13 at home. We've got the Seattle Seahawks up next, but before we get to that, we will break down everything and anything that we saw from Sunday's game. Before we head to break, we tell you about our friends at the Mint Gaming Hall and Circus Sports, the largest sportsbook in Kentucky, which is now open for business at the Mint Gaming Hall in Franklin, Kentucky. With an 80-foot sportsbook screen and stadium-style seating, the Mint's the place to be to catch some NBA now, some college hoops, as well as the NFL and the Titans. The Mint and Circus Sports are proud sponsors of our show. You're watching the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast on Main Street Media Television.
The winning just got closer. All new sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mint Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
He shoots, and he scores!
Welcome to the Omni Nashville Hotel. Urban elegance with a vintage touch. Our 800-room hotel opened up in the fall of 2013 with 746 guest rooms and 54 suites.
If you want the latest in weather conditions, be sure to tune in to our Busy Bee Plumbing Weather Report each weekday on Mornings on Main Street. Brought to you, of course, by Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. We will keep you updated on the latest conditions outside, like severe weather, heat, snow, rain, and even hail.
Back in on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast, recapping the Titans' 16-13 loss to the Houston Texans. There's a lot of talk about the offense and its lack of production continuing to be a trend up until that 95-yard drive that the Titans took at the end of the game to tie it before Houston obviously wins it there. Terry, just a lack of explosiveness and flash from this offense up until that point, it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, it was very just mundane in terms of the Titans offense, for about 58 minutes of the game. Then with, desperation closing in on them there, trailing 13-6 with, late in the fourth quarter, they suddenly get it together. And even that drive started out with dink and dunk with, 4 and 6 yard gains in the pass game. The run game, in fairness, was non-existent except for one 20-yard scramble by Cam Ward on that last drive. In fact, until that last drive, the Titans had not had an explosive play the entire game. Hence is why you have 6 points. That and the conservative nature of Mike McCoy and Bo Hardegree calling the game led to exactly what you saw for the first 50-plus minutes of that game. But then when they absolutely had to have it, Cam Ward makes a beautiful throw to Chigakonkwo for 39 yards, sets up first and goal. They score 2 plays later and tie it, and all of a sudden things are looking up until the defense, which has carried them, throughout that entire game, then has a breakdown, allowing a 3rd and 16 conversion that keeps the drive alive. Pass from Davis Mills to Nico Collins. Shortly thereafter, Matthew Wright's field goal sends the Titans to another loss and more misery and more questions. Blaine, the floor is yours.
Yeah, you take out the 39-yard pass that Ward had to Chigakonkwo, tally it up. Cam Ward was 24-37 overall, just 4.3 yards per attempt. And I know Mike McCoy, you questioned him about this after the game, and he credited some of the penalties. We've mentioned J.C. Latham's total for the day, as well as that just kind of hamstringing the offense across the board with false starts and holdings, a couple of other penalties along the way. He mentioned that and the injuries to Calvin Ridley, Chim Dike, and Alec Iomanner. Of course, the one to Ridley being the most severe, taking him out for the season with a broken fibula. But even still, Terry, I looked on Next Gen Stats this morning, and based on Cam Ward's pass chart, only 3 attempts on the day went over 20 yards outside of the Okonkwo throw. How concerning was that for you as a whole?
Very concerning, because I think when you're 1-9 and you're headed nowhere except for a high pick in the draft, I think you have to start taking a few chances. You have to start letting Cam Ward, give him an opportunity to make a play. Now, that said, several times on Sunday, you talked about the 3 throws. The other 3 throws were mostly inaccurate. He overshot Alec Iomanner on a deep end. He missed a wide open Mason Kinsey when, Cam zigged and Mason Kinsey zagged on the play, and it wound up as an incompletion. And then he overshot Kinsey again on another throw where he was open, where now a 6'3" receiver like Alec Iomanner probably reaches out and catches that ball, but a 5'9" receiver like Mason Kinsey has no shot at it. So it's still a growth process for Cam Ward. It's still the same issues with the batted throws, with the mechanics that are not quite there. And I'm going to be honest with you. I said something controversial on Twitter that has some Titans fans up in arms, but I'm going to stick with it. Unless your name is Jeffrey Simmons, when the new coach comes into this team next season, everybody's job is open competition. And that, to me, includes Cam Ward, because here's why I say that. Yes, it could have a negative effect, because going back to Will Levis would be a negative connotation to a lot of people. Not necessarily saying that Levis has to be the competition for Ward, but he is still under contract. There are free agent quarterbacks like a Mac Jones or a Joe Flacco that would be available. to bring in as competition and to be a mentor for Cam. Now, that said, when has Cam Ward, dating back to his college days, when has Cam Ward thrived? He's thrived when he's been challenged and brought into new situations. He was unrecruited out of high school, wound up at Incarnate Word, succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. That landed him in Division I at Washington State, a middling program at that level. He succeeded there. Then he wanted to go play with the big boys. He went to Miami, succeeded there. Every time he's been challenged, he's answered the challenge. I say challenge him next offseason.
Yeah, a bit of a difference what he had to go through this preseason compared to those challenges that you mentioned in college. Kind of spoon-fed the job. Of course, you want the number one quarterback to take the starting position right away, but it's pretty hard not to do that when Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle are your competition, are the quarterbacks that you're fighting for a job with, alongside Will Levis, who obviously opted for a shoulder surgery right away. Other quarterbacks that could be kind of potential veteran options. We joked about Marcus Mariota before the show started. Jameis Winston in a similar situation right now in New York. How about Jacoby Brissett, who just set an NFL record in completions? Those are all veteran guys who've been in a variety of situations. Jacoby's been in this division before with Indianapolis. So I just think that the Titans put themselves in a difficult position because they didn't challenge Cam Ward right away. It's just something, like you said, that's an unnatural thing for him.
Right. And here's the thing, too. When you have a new coach coming in, and we know it's not going to be Mike McCoy, there's going to be a new coach come in from the outside. That guy has to have the power to ride with whoever he thinks gives him the best chance to win. We've already seen what an arranged marriage between coach and quarterback looks like when they did not have competition for Will Levis after he was somewhat impressive during a half a season his rookie year. They brought in Brian Callahan with the specific edict to develop Will Levis. Didn't work out. And then all of a sudden Callahan says, I need my guy. His guy is Cam Ward. Then all of a sudden, when it doesn't go well, Callahan's out the door, and you're right back in the same situation with a different quarterback looking for the right coach.
Terry, how desperately do you think the Titans need a number one wide receiver right now? Calvin Ridley came back from the hamstring that had nagged him for 3 games plus the bye, lasted all of one play, all of one catch before breaking his fibula, and is now out for the year. With guys like Chim and Ellick, of course, have brought a spark at points, as well as the tight end game. But do you think this team and Cam Ward specifically are really missing that top dog number one wideout?
Yeah, you got to have it. You got to have a number one receiver. It's not going to happen this year now with Ridley being gone for the year. What you have to hope for is that Cam gets on the same page and develops a connection with what he has, especially with Ioman or DK, and I'll throw Gunnar Helm in there because we know that those guys are going to be here over the next 2 or 3 years developing along with Cam Ward. So in my estimation, there are hundreds of holes, it feels like, on this roster. But the biggest thing is you need a number one receiver for your quarterback. You need a running game for your quarterback. You need a true difference maker at edge rusher on the defensive side of the ball. And you need at least 2 cornerbacks going into next year.
Right now, it seems like they have none of that. Not even a hope of it, a sliver of it. Where do you think, at least offensively, let's start there, is it more important to have a standout running back? Maybe that could be Tajay Spears if they start to give him more of Tony Pollard's touches, or is it that top wide receiver that we just talked about?
I got to go with the top wide receiver first because that's a more valued position than running back. I can find a running back in the 3rd or 4th round that can, carry the load for me or be part of a committee to carry the load. The New York Giants found Cam Scadaboo in the 4th round. That was working out very nicely for them until he got hurt. So you can find a running back. They need to go back really. and who knows what the new coach will do offensively and defensively. But in my opinion, you got to go back to leaning more on the running game. The absence of a running game over the last 2 years has been a big part of the reason why these quarterbacks have failed. It was part of the reason Will Levis was better in 23 than he was in 24, because there was Derrick Henry to account for in the backfield. So when you have Derrick Henry to account for, you're going to see more one-on-ones because it's going to be a stacked box. You can use play action effectively. Now, I mean, with all due respect to Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, no team's game planning to stop those guys because they're, average NFL players at best. But you've got to get enough of accountability and production from the run game to give your quarterback a chance to find some favorable matchups.
Yeah, this will be something that I think we get into in our Titans stock report here in just a minute. But Cam Ward was the leading rusher for the Titans yesterday. And if you've been following Ward and the Titans this season, that's not really a great thing. It's a good thing because Cam finally escaped the pocket twice and scrambled, picked up a couple of big plays on the run, 20-yard gain and a 10-yard gain. But that also shows that the two other running backs, Pollard and Spears, had less than 33 yards in a after the bye game at the midway point of the season. That's really concerning.
Yeah, it is. And there's some of that culpability belongs on the offensive line, too, for not opening up very many running lanes. Now, granted, the Texans have the number one rated defense in the league, and it was going to be a tall ask anyway for this team to find a way to have success running the ball. In that regard, I think Cam Ward, taking off and scrambling and using his legs to move the chains a couple of times, especially with the 20-yard run, long overdue. Let's see more of it. Not to the point where you're like Jackson Dart and you get yourself in the concussion protocol because you're running too much. They're running him like it's Frank Gifford in 1957. But you need to see it occasionally, especially on a bad team where explosive plays are at a premium.
Van Jefferson and Mason Kinsey were the main wide receivers at the end of the game yesterday, Terry. I know Ellick kind of came in and out there at the end, dealing with an injury of his own. But let's say that Jim DK can't go next week, and of course Calvin Ridley can't. Is it Xavier Restrepo time at long last for Titans fans?
Well, it's going to be James Prochet first, but Xavier Restrepo is slowly creeping up the depth chart due to the attrition there with because of all the injuries. So, those who've been wishing to see Xavier Restrepo, who certainly had an outstanding college career and worked well with Cam Ward last year at Miami, you may soon get your wish. After all, this Titans team's not going anywhere, so you might as well start seeing what you have in whoever's available.
Well, that's what I'm kind of thinking. I didn't stand on the table and never have for Xavier Restrepo. I thought he was a good undrafted free agent signing in a class that turned out to be pretty bust-filled, if that is a fair term to talk about UDFAs. But they didn't really swing on anybody in that class, despite getting a lot of guys that they were high on. But at this point of the season, you don't have anything else to play for. There's not going to be a whole lot of interest drummed up in this team otherwise. Could be a good storyline to just throw him out there and see what happens between the two Miami teammates late in the season.
Sure. And I want to go back to your point about, the undrafted free agents and all. And here's something that's not been talked about enough. If you're a team as bad as the Titans, you would think that you'd have the cream of the crop undrafted guys knocking at your door wanting an opportunity because the roster in and of itself has not been very good for the last 3 or 4 years. And yet you're like you mentioned, they strike out on nearly every one of them except for a few that are lingering on the practice squad. My question is this: what is the Titans scouting department seeing or not seeing that other teams are doing differently? Are other teams' scouting departments just having a hearty laugh at the Titans' expense when they turn in a card that says Nicholas Petit-Frere in the 3rd round? I mean, because he's out of the league. And that's just one of many, many examples over the last 3 or 4 years. What is going on with this scouting department that they can't find people who can play football and play it at a high level?
It's a fair question to ask, and it's one that we hope to answer through the rest of this season. We're going to take one more break here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. When we come back, we'll close with our Titans stock report. Stay tuned.
The winning just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer. He shoots, and he scores!
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Hi, I'm Joseph Burgoyne, Chef Tornado of the Omni Nashville Hotel. Come see us at Kitchen Notes.
Our Titans stock report is brought to you by the Mint Gaming Hall and all of its many amenities. Spring Hill Suites, Iron Steakhouse, great racing track for horse racing throughout the year. Be sure to check out the Mint Gaming Hall, proud sponsors of our show. Again, they're located just north of Nashville off I-65 North, exit 121. Starting our stock report with a stock up for Cody Barton, Titans linebacker, who's had an in and out kind of season. Terry feels like he's shined at some points, been a little dull, maybe a little questionable at some other moments. He had 3 pass deflections in the first half, played some sticky coverage underneath, also had that pivotal 4th down sack in the red zone against the Texans on their first drive of the game.
Yeah, Cody Barton has played very well the last couple of weeks. He went through a little streak there a few weeks ago where he was struggling, but I think the last 2 games he started to really be one of the better players on this defense, and teaming with Cedric Gray, who has also been solid this year for the most part.
It's interesting, and I told you this in the press box yesterday, that it felt like the linebacker group was maybe one of the more questionable areas for this defense to start the year. Now it's kind of been one of the more consistent groups. Continuing the talk on the defense, going to give a stock up to Arden Key and Jeffrey Simmons because both were back yesterday. They combined for 2.5 sacks, played really well on the defensive line. And going back to what Jeffrey Simmons' spirited conversations in the locker room were like, he mentioned that him and Arden, they worked to get back for a reason, Terry, and that reason was not to lose. Part of the frustration being the same result after such a hard road to get back from injury.
Yeah, and it really is frustrating for these veteran guys who are used to doing things a certain way. Arden Key brought it up in the locker room after the game. He said that, when he was a young player and he wasn't getting the job done, veteran guys would come to you and they'd set you straight and you'd better get it right. He said nowadays and maybe it's just the difference in generations. He says that nowadays young guys will just kind of huff and puff and really, not really be as bought in, it sounds like, as they need to be, or that the veterans would like them to be. And that's a dangerous precedent for a team that's already ingrained in losing over the last 2 or 3 years. You don't want that to set in with young players all across the roster and pick up bad habits and the expectations that it's not going to get any better.
Where are you sitting on your stock report after this loss to the Texans?
Well, stock up. I'm going with the tight ends, Gunnar Helm and Chigakonkwo, who may have to become more relied upon now that the wide receiver room has been thinned out, especially with the injury to Calvin Ridley, and we don't know the statuses yet of Chim Dike and Alec Eilmaner. So Chigakonkwo had the big 39-yard catch that allowed him to have 3 catches for 56 yards yesterday, which led the team. Gunnar Helm continues to be a ball magnet whenever the ball's thrown his way. I'd like to see the 2 tight ends be used more because it also kind of makes for an easier target for Cam Ward a lot of times, because tight ends often don't run as deep a routes, and the passes are safer to them. So what about the stock down?
Stock down, we talked about it. Titans running backs, Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, not enough. And I think your stock down works in tandem with that, with the offensive line, and particularly J.C. Latham.
Yeah, I'm starting to worry that J.C. Latham is trending toward being another draft miss. And I hope that he rights himself, and that's not the case, because the Titans simply cannot afford to have another high draft pick not pan out. But J.C. Latham has struggled this year, and Sunday it was on full display. And when Jeffrey Simmons says the Titans had 4 false starts in Friday's practice, now I don't know, he did not say specifically who those false starts were on, but then when you follow it up and as a team have 5 in the game at home in a half-empty stadium, what's going on here? Figure it out. Do your job. Do it correctly. Somebody thought, and this is to J.C. Latham in particular, somebody thought you were a talented player because you were an all-SEC player at Alabama. You're a 5-star recruit. You're a first-round pick, 7th overall in the NFL. Get it together.
Titans need to get it together through the rest of this season. We'll see if they get it done. Up next is the Seattle Seahawks, and that is our show. Thank you for tuning in to the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. Thank you to the Mint for sponsoring our show. We'll see you next week.